What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again with the Awesemo channel. And March Madness has arrived. We have a massive DFS slate on Thursday, March the 17th, and we're going to get into everything you need to know about that. But before we get started, make sure to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when this and all other content goes live. We're also brought to you today by Monkey Knife Fight, and they have a great offer for those of you new to the platform. With their promo code PLUS, P-L-U-S, you're going to get 2 free months of Awesemo Plus and all sorts of deposit bonus potential. So make sure to check out Monkey Knife Fight. We have 16 games, so we're going to get right into this as quickly as we can. They're in order of the bracket, not in order of timing. Had a little bit of a crunch time to get this video out, so just bear with me and know that it might not necessarily be in order. But we're going to get to every game on the main slate. And to kick things off, we have Gonzaga taking on Georgia State. It's a massive spread, 23 points in favor of Gonzaga, 149 total. A little bit lower than Gonzaga's typical totals because they play so fast, but obviously the advantages are going to be towards the Zags. To me, it was just whether they can cover the 23 or not, and I am actually backing Georgia State here. But for DFS, you have Chet Holmgren, extremely expensive. I actually would prefer Drew Timme if you're playing one of these guys. The starters are going to have massive blowout risk, and we've seen that multiple times with Gonzaga this year. There's a pretty good chance that one of them hits the ceiling. It's just playing roulette, whether it's going to be Chet Holmgren or Timme. Those are the two most likely. Nembhard may be the third most likely, but he's more expensive than Timme. I'd rather just take the locked-in rebound rate there. Strother and Bolton just not efficient enough, not involved enough to really take shots on outside of big tournaments. Georgia State, they're actually a little healthier than they were earlier in the year. Kane Williams and Corey Allen are their usage leaders. They play every single minute. You just draw a tough matchup here against Gonzaga. I think if you play one, it's probably Corey Allen. His usage rate's about 20%. But I mean, really tough ask here. And then the mid-price, just not really worthwhile here. Nosemsi, he's maybe a guy you could look at for rebounding, some double-double equity. But again, I'm probably out on Georgia State with the low total. Second game is Boise State taking on Memphis. Memphis, the favorite by 2.5 points, 133.5 point total. Not great here. Boise's going to slow you down, and they're going to slow you down a ton. Really low in possessions per game. Memphis is above average, but you're going to have Boise dragging it down here. On Boise, you have a tight rotation, but again, team total super low. Memphis amazing on defense. I don't know if this is a spot we really want to get to, but Kegob, he plays every single minute. Got a lot of double-double equity with him. He's got a 16% rebound rate, 22% shot rate, and he's actually been assisting a lot too. A lot of the offense going through him. But I think maybe you go to one of the cheaper plays if you play someone in this game. Tyson DeGenhart is 5,500. It's still a little bit expensive for him, but he'll play more than 30 minutes. He's active everywhere. Shaver at 58 is a little bit better in my opinion. Just pay the 300 extra, get that 19.5% shot rate last three, 24% assist rate. And then you always have Armas and Akot in there as well. Akot's been above 7K multiple times this year. Just draws a really tough matchup against the interior of Memphis, which is led by Jalen Duren, DeAndre Williams, and we may even see Imani Bates. He's traveling with the team. We do not know for sure whether he'll play or not, and I would suggest maybe stay away from him. If he does play, he hasn't played since January 27th. But outside of that, Memphis has actually condensed the rotation a little bit. Landers Nolly and Alex Lomax are playing a ton of minutes. Neither is particularly cheap. They're both in the 5Ks. Probably going with Lomax just because of price, but you have a lot more upside with Nolly, including the 21% shot rate last three. But they're going to play 10 guys for Memphis, low total. Even like Duren, maybe, but he's so expensive. It's just not worthwhile, in my opinion. This is a game to avoid. UConn, New Mexico State, another low total. We do have some really good totals later on. It's just not at the beginning of this bracket. UConn, a 6.5 point favorite. Both teams below 70 implied team total. Both teams solid on defense, top 50 in both. UConn basically functions through their big man, Adama Sanogo. He's the player you want to target if you're playing anyone in this team. 25% shot rate, 28.5% rebound rate last three. Tyrese Martin is going to be your second most involved player. He's actually shooting the ball a ton lately. 29% shot rate, 25.5% rebound rate. RJ Cole, maybe a buy low, but again, low total here, maximum one player from this team. On New Mexico State, not too much to see with the super low total here. I think maybe you could get to one of the starters in the 6Ks. Usage rate leaders, Teddy Allen. But again here, I don't know if you want to play these low total games, these slow environments in these defensively sound matchups. But Teddy Allen, he'll play every single minute when he doesn't foul out. We saw 23 minutes last game. He fouled out. but 24.5% shot rate, 17.5% rebound rate. He's a GPP play. Jabari Rice is basically a pure shooter. Assist rate's way down for him of late, but maybe you could look to him in tournaments. And same thing with Johnny McCants. Just not too much to see with this team. Arkansas, Vermont. This is a game that's really interesting. The total at 139 is pretty interesting overall. 5.5-point spread in favor of the Razorbacks. They've had some volatility with their rotation throughout the year, but JD Note, Jalen Williams, when they don't foul, they're going to play 30-plus minutes, and we've seen that multiple times, but both of them have dealt with foul trouble of late, particularly Note. He only played 27 minutes last game because he fouled immediately in the first half, and we know Musselman is not going to play his players when they foul, and it ended up costing him in the SEC tournament. They lost that game, and it probably cost him at some point in the NCAA tournament. I just don't think it's against Vermont, who hasn't played anybody of consequence this year. So for Arkansas, you have a little bit of a buy low situation on Note. He should be slightly more expensive. The same can be said about Williams, but you have some really cheap guys that play almost every single minute in Desi Tony and Stanley Amude. Both of them are involved enough to target here. Amude would be the player I like because he has the near 20% shot rate, but Desi Tony is involved across the board everywhere. Good rebound rate, good shot rate for him, and it's up in the last 2 games. Devontae Davis, I don't want to play Devontae Davis because he's so cheap at 4,900, but man, the minutes are as volatile as they come. You have minute counts of 31, 5, and 20 in the last 3 games. You are literally just rolling the dice with him, hoping he plays. On Vermont, Ben Shangu is the leader of this team. Ryan Davis is right there behind him. Just Shangu has slightly more consistent minutes. And I mean, Vermont blew out all the opponents that they faced in their conference tournament. So I think in a more competitive spot, Ryan Davis, she should play a lot more. He should get over 20 minutes for sure. That's not always a given with him, but Shangu has the massive shot rate, 26.5%. Davis still had an 18% shot rate and nearly 15% rebound rate, despite only playing half the game of late. You have some other decent options here. Justin Bazula plays near 30 minutes. He's more of a peripheral player, but he's only 4,400. Isaiah Powell, maybe somebody you could look at. And these guys might be buy lows just for DraftKings FanDuel specifically because they typically aren't seeing the full game. They're blowing out their opponents so badly. So I expect a tighter rotation, decent spot for tournaments, I think. Colorado State taking on Michigan. We had a huge blow early in the day. Michigan will be without Devontae Jones. He has a concussion. He did not travel. Now, they may get him back at some point, but it's not going to be this weekend, so they'll probably need to make it to the Sweet 16 at the very least. But Michigan is still the 1.5-point favorite here, 139 total, which is solid. Colorado State has 2 monster usage players in David Roddy and Isaiah Stevens. Both of them are viable across the board tournaments, even for cash games. Roddy's expensive, so there are other players in this price range I would rather get to. But for tournaments, you really can't go wrong with Roddy, who has at least 21.5% usage across all of the major statistical categories: shot rate, rebound rate, assist rate, you name it, he has it. Stevens, more of a boom bust guy, lives through the shots and the assists. He is much cheaper, so he could be a path as well. Outside of that, you do have some players with fairly consistent minutes at cheaper prices. Kendall Moore is 4,100. He'll play upper 20s, low 30s in minutes. The same can be said about John Tanji. With so much usage coming through Roddy and Stevens, these are high floor, low ceiling players just because their minutes are so consistent. Michigan, man, okay, we need to figure out what to do with this situation now that we don't have Devontae Jones. Michigan plays such a tight rotation, it's kind of hard to decipher where the minutes go. You're going to see Hunter Dickinson as the usage leader. Everything's going to flow through him. He's a really tough matchup for Colorado State, who's not very big, so Dickinson's a great GPP play at the top. Now you have Eli Brooks and Caleb Houston expected to take on larger roles, but Frankie Collins is the favorite. Excuse me, I accidentally clicked to a different matchup here. We'll go back to it. Meant to click Frankie Collins down here. He's the favorite to take over for Devontae Jones, at least get the minutes. Now, he plays about 5 minutes a game typically. They just haven't used any other guards. Kobe Buffkin, maybe could see some extra time here, but I would tentatively lean Frankie Collins, and if we get word that he starts, he'll be the best value play on the entire slate. So watch him. Musa Diabate, somebody you could look to in the mid-price range too, but I think it's just Dickinson or go all the way down to Collins for me. Next matchup, we have Tennessee taking on Longwood, another potential blowout spot similar to Gonzaga. You just got to watch the studs with Tennessee. They're all probably a little overpriced considering the minutes they're going to be projected to play. 132 total is not great. Longwood has a 57.5 team total, and they do not run a tight rotation. So Longwood off the board, not going to be playing anyone, especially their studs. Justin Hill, 7,100, is an egregious price for him, even though his usage is very good. Still can't get there. Tennessee, it's Santiago Vescovi, Kennedy Chandler, and Josiah Jordan-James getting most of the work done right now. Zakai Zeigler is playing a lot of minutes, but he's more of your peripheral player. Josiah Jordan-James is the guy that has the most double-double equity because of his rebound at 20% in the last 3 games, 21% shot rate, also active in the assists. I just think everyone in Tennessee is a bit too expensive here, considering Longwood is at risk of just such a severe blowout here. Our next game is Kansas-Texas Southern. We saw Texas Southern beat down Corpus Christi. 21.5 point spread here. One of the larger marks on the slate. I believe only Gonzaga is higher. Everybody on Kansas runs the same risk that we talked about with Gonzaga and Tennessee. Agbaji and Brown are the top 2 plays here. The only thing to watch is Mitch Lightfoot is battling a knee injury. On Tuesday, their coach spoke and he said if the game were tomorrow, Lightfoot wouldn't play. I don't see any reason to force him out here. So maybe Big Dave McCormick gets a little bit extra usage just because Lightfoot is hurt. Jalen Wilson, also a decent contrarian play at $7K. He's not quite as expensive as some of the studs here, but you got to be at least wary some of the team total here because of the blowout. Texas Southern, they run a nasty rotation. I think you play Bryson Etienne if you want to in tournaments. I would recommend not doing that. PJ Henry is maybe an option below 5K, but ultimately Texas Southern probably a pass. San Diego State Creighton, the worst game on the main slate for DFS. It is a 2.5 point spread in favor of San Diego State. 120.5 total. Not too much to get to here. San Diego State is a complete fade, not playing anyone on the team. Matt Bradley would be the guy, but 7,200 just way too expensive for him. He's above 19.5% in all of his rates in the last 3, but again, just no ceiling. Creighton is a pretty decent matchup for San Diego. San Diego State's going to struggle inside with some of the size Kalkbrenner, Hawkins, and even Kaluma provide. It's just the total so low. I don't know if you want to get to any of these guys. Maybe an Arthur Kaluma who did play 38 minutes in their last game. He has great rates across the board. I just really worry about the ceiling here. I would rather play him than Trey Alexander overall. And then AOC, Alex O'Connell, Ryan Hawkins, and Kalkbrenner are all a little bit expensive. Iowa taking on Richmond, and actually a pretty easy one to break down. Iowa's surging of late. 10.5 point favorite over Richmond. Richmond finished 6th in their conference, but they rattle off a couple upsets to win and punch their ticket here. They are rightfully huge underdogs. The total is 150 because Iowa plays so fast, so efficient on offense, and they are a sieve on defense. And Iowa's very easy to break down. You basically play Keegan Murray or you move on unless there's an injury. They run a nasty rotation, and only Tony Perkins of late, I guess Jordan Bohannon, have been playing a lot more than 25 minutes, except for Keegan Murray, who plays every minute without foul trouble. 29.7% shot rate last 3, 32% rebound rate, 16% assist rate. He's 10.1K, but he's not expensive enough. Keegan Murray is a phenomenal play. Richmond, they should be able to score. They play a little slower, but Iowa's defense is so bad. You have Jacob Gilliard, who's shooting a ton, 30% shot rate, 32% assist rate, viable in tournaments on the other side. Also think you can use Tyler Burton, Grant Golden, and maybe even a Nate Ko. Don't love his price, but these are the players that are going to be rounding out the rotation for Richmond. I expect some people play Andre Gustafson because of his minute consistency, but there's no usage with him. Would rather get to some other players like the value on Michigan. Providence, South Dakota State, a phenomenal game. I told you the good games come later in the slate. 2.5 point spread in favor of Providence. 149.5 total here. Just absolutely massive spread, massive total. Phenomenal game environment with 2 elite offenses and questionable defenses. Providence is a little banged up. AJ Reeves left their last game with an injury. Al Durham is playing through a sports hernia with a little less effectiveness. His rates have been affected for sure. So Al Durham is probably their leader on the year in usage outside of Bynum, who played a little limited minutes to start the year. I don't think you can play Durham because of the injury right now. The only player really seeing consistent minutes across the board, Justin Minaya and Nate Horkler. Don't love the rates on Horkler. Minaya, I think, is cheap enough to look at, but even he is low upside. You're going to see 7 guys play a lot of minutes for Providence. It's a decent spot overall, but I have a hard time playing any of them. I would love to play Durham if he was healthy. South Dakota State, I think the most mispriced team on the entire slate, just overall. They're slight underdogs. The game environment is amazing. They're the number 1 3-point shooting team in the country. So their shooting is great across the board. Free throws, you name it, they're great. And they have an underpriced stud in Baylor Shireman. I would rather play Shireman than Douglas Wilson at the same price. Wilson has been on fire of late. He has better rates just in the last 3 games, but Baylor Shireman has better rates on the year. Ultimately, deciding between these two could be pivotal in tournaments. I expect Shireman to be higher owned. So if you were just looking for a one-for-one pivot in this offense, I think you could gain some leverage with Wilson, but ultimately both are amazing plays. And then they run a tight rotation. So you have Charlie Easley, Zeke Mayo, and Alex Arians all playing 30-plus minutes when games are competitive. I think Zeke Mayo and Charlie Easley are the two players you want to highlight most here. Easley is going to be more of a peripheral player, but the total's so solid that you could pick up a lot of assists and rebounds there. Mayo was a better shot rate, making him a little more boom bust, but the minutes are just so consistent. I think you probably want one of these cheap guys in such a good game environment. Baylor Norfolk, similar to Gonzaga, the blowout is a risk, a 21-point spread in favor of Baylor, 138 total overall. Pretty decent pace. It's above average here. But Baylor's a team coming into the first and second round of the tournament still injured. They did get back Adam Flagler, but LJ Cryer is not going to play. Chama Chachu is out for the year. I think maybe you could take a look at some of the elite guys. James Akinjo is going to be a good play down the stretch. He's the highest usage rate, plays every minute. Flagler is a guy who's come back and taken a ton of shots. Pretty decent assist rate for him, too. I think he cannibalizes Akinjo a little bit. I would like for the prices to converge before playing Akinjo, so I would probably get Flagler before looking to Akinjo right now. In the front court, Jeremy Sochan and Flo Thomber are going to be your guys. Sochan has the higher shot rate, so he'd probably be the one to look at. But overall, these are just tournament plays because of the volatility. Norfolk is not a team you want to look at. Joe Bryant is probably the best play here. He'll play every single minute, and he has great rates. I'm still a little bit wary. The only thing with Bryant that makes him a little bit different, I think, is he's cheaper than a lot of the studs on these other teams. These teams that, have a usage leader, but they're in a blowout. Bryant's actually 5,300, which is a little bit palatable. I'm not 100% sold yet, but if I'm playing one of these usage monsters on a blowout risk team like Norfolk, it's probably going to be Bryant. Plus, this game has a pretty decent total and an up-tempo environment, so there's more reasons to like Bryant than some of the other expensive studs on weak teams. So probably not getting to like a Chris Bankston or a Jalen Hawkins, even though they also soak up a lot of usage. Dana Tate sort of fits in that role as well. All these guys, fairly decent usage, but Bryant so consistent across the board, and he's the cheapest of the three outside Hawkins. Marquette, North Carolina, another amazing total. The slate backloaded a little bit. North Carolina 4-point favorites, 152 total overall. Big decision point here is going to be Justin Lewis or Armando Bacot. Now, you're going to get a little bit of savings with Justin Lewis, but he's going to be facing a more difficult matchup against Bacot on the interior. But Justin Lewis can do it all. He's above 27% in shot rate and rebound rate last three, playing low 30s in minutes. Would wish that was a little bit higher with him. No one else is really viable on Marquette, in my opinion. Morcel's just too expensive for his role. Kolek is only an assist player. And then they're going to run an 8-man rotation. North Carolina is running the exact opposite. They are really tight in their rotation, and Armando Bacot has one of the best matchups in the first round. He has a 29% rebound rate last three games, 17% shot rate. Bacot takes advantage of a smaller Marquette team. Marquette does not have a lot of size. Bacot should walk his way into a double-double with max minutes as long as he doesn't foul. Manek also in a really great spot. He's active across the board. Shot rate, rebound rate, assist rate. Manek, you can't go wrong saving money with him. And Caleb Love is the third player I'd like to mention. 23% shot rate, 30.5% assist rate. He's solid pivot off Brady, Manek, and Bacot. RJ Davis also is somewhat worthwhile here too. He's played a lot more recently. 35-plus minutes in two of the last three. 20% shot rate, 16% rebound rate, 24% assist rate. If you're just going all the way down for cheap plays, that's where I would cut it off. Not interested in Leaky Black. St. Mary's taking on Indiana. Another really low total game. Both these teams are fairly slow, and that's particularly coming from the St. Mary's side. They're extremely slow. Both these teams defensively sound, but Indiana has surged a little bit recently, so you see the spread at 2.5 points in favor of St. Mary's. On St. Mary's, I think you either play Tommy Kusa or you probably move on. Logan Johnson has some intrigue, but if I'm playing a stud on St. Mary's, I would rather take the minute consistency with Kusa. He's above 20% shot rate, rebound rate, and assist rate last three. The same can be said for Johnson, but just not playing quite as many minutes if we're splitting hairs. Alex Dukas is at 33-plus minutes each of the last three. He's just not used enough, in my opinion. I'd rather play somebody else. Trace Jackson Davis is going to continue to be a player that's a little difficult to target, but he always has that upside that could straight up break the slate, which we've seen now each of the last 2 times he's been on the slate. But overall, St. Mary's plays decent interior defense. The main advantage for Jackson Davis comes in the rebounding room, where he is going to play for an Indiana team, 92nd in rebounding, St. Mary's 252nd. So big advantage for Trace there in the post. He'll play every minute. He's above 30% shot rate and rebound rate last three, and he's at a 19% assist rate. The entire offense is flowing through him right now. Very, very attractive play. Outside of him, the rotation is a little volatile. Xavier Johnson's been the only other player consistently getting that many minutes, I guess I should say, 30 or more in each of the last three. Looks like there's an error on the assist rates here, so I'll go back and fix that. But you guys get the point. Xavier Johnson, extremely involved. Outside of those two, probably not getting to too much. UCLA every time I see AKR, it confuses me with ARK in Arkansas. I've done this probably like 4 times behind the scenes. It's Akron. UCLA taking on Akron. 13.5 point spread. Akron, a couple upsets to win. The MAC, a team that we did not expect to be here, thought it would be Toledo, but UCLA is a 13.5 point favorite, 128 total overall. UCLA plays with 4 guys. It's Jaime Jaquez, Jules Bernard, Tiger Campbell, and Johnny Juzang. Juzang is still too cheap, in my opinion. You have Jaquez with a ton of usage. He's above 20% shot rate, rebound rate, and assist rate last 3. But Juzang's coming back from the injury, and we see the minutes slowly ticking up. 39 in the most recent contest was great to see. 19% shot rate. These rates are all still a little bit low for Juzang, and you're buying low on him. I would just play Juzang if you're getting anyone to UCLA. For Akron, there is some interest in some of these cheap guys. Enrique Freeman has a monster rebound rate, 29%. I think he's somewhat viable here. I would probably rather get to Enrique than a Xavier Castaneda or an Ali, but ultimately these are players that are somewhat worthwhile, I think, for Akron. 2 games left. We have Murray State, San Francisco. This game's a pick-em, 137 total. KJ Williams is one of these studs on a team that we don't know a lot about in Murray State. They did win their conference. They have 2 losses in the year, 24% shot rate and rebound rate in each of the last 3 games. If you can afford him, he's fantastic, but I would rather get to some of the other studs like Trace Jackson Davis and, Keegan Murray, definitely one way at the top. Armando Bacot, all those players stand out a little bit more in better game environments, with the exception of Trace Jackson Davis. He's just been a monster recently. Tevin Brown is also very active for this team. He's expensive too. He's only $7,900. It's a little more expensive than I thought he'd be. 27% shot rate for him, 15.5% rebound rate, 24% assist rate. Just a little too much in my opinion. And then the other players don't quite see the usage or the minutes. Justice Hill's one, Trey Hannibal, not interested in those guys. For San Francisco, Jamari Boye, he's a little bit cheaper than I thought he'd be. Again, not the best game environment, but he's active everywhere. 36.5% assist rate, 19% rebound rate, 23.5% shot rate for him. Yahin Masalski, he's a player that is still banged up. I think he was just out in their conference tournament due to precaution. He's now had over a week to get right, so I think we see him back. He was a game-time decision in their last contest. He'll be a big addition, and he has a solid usage rate. He's just a little cheaper than Khalil Shabazz. I would rather play Shabazz over him. 19% usage rate compared to 15 for Masalski. And that's about it with this San Francisco team. Rishwain probably sees some of his minutes drop if Masalski's back. Patrick Tape is an immense foul risk every time he's on the floor. That's basically it for San Francisco, trying to get to Boye or Shabazz if that's where I decide to go with this game. Kentucky has the same overall blowout risks of your Baylors, of your Tennessees, of your Gonzagas. They're 17.5 point favorites over St. Peter's, 132 total, not great. Oscar Tshiebwe is the man we need to talk about, 10.2. I would rather play Keegan Murray straight up. But Tshiebwe, if he gets 20 minutes, he probably doubles in this spot. St. Peter's does not have the best size. They're okay in this department, but Tshiebwe is just an absolute monster, and he's doubling much better competition than St. Peter's. I think the same thing goes for a lot of the other players in this lineup. It's probably Ty Washington or Severe Wheeler if you're not playing Tshiebwe, but they're in the mid 6Ks. Do you want to spend 6K on a Ty Washington who plays 20 minutes? It's a risk, but I mean, their implied team total is still high. I think there are pros and cons to this, probably a tournament-only strategy. For St. Peter's, nobody really plays consistent minutes, like those high-end minutes that we want out of these kind of teams. It's probably Casey Ndefo if we play any of them, but he's 6,700. Again, I'm just not going to pay that much for a usage leader for a team that's a massive underdog. If I'm doing that, it's going to be on Norfolk State. But I mean, for tournaments, I guess you could do it. Kentucky plays phenomenal defense. So this probably is just a stay away spot, in my opinion. Both these teams amazing on defense. St. Peter's actually 9th in defensive efficiency this year overall, which is crazy for a team coming out of their conference. But that will do it for the show. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know in the comment section who your favorite plays are. I know this was a little fast. We had to get this out quickly with how busy the week has been, but we will update. We have a live before lock coming tomorrow. So anything we didn't get to on this show, any questions you might have, bring them to live before lock. We will hash out all the data there. I am Matt Gajewski on Twitter at Matt_Gajewski. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you again next time.